What's up, Marvelites, and welcome to a brand new episode of the MCUExchange podcast. This is a milestone episode for us. This is episode 25, 25th episode. Yay! Woo!
Yeah.
My name is Aaron, and I'll be your host for this episode. Alongside me is Charles.
Yo, what's up?
He's
What's up?
gone.
Sorry. Did it
And
disappear?
Joe.
Hello.
Hey, man. All right, and there's a lot of news running around in social media sites in the past few days, rather. Just about to give a shout out first to our listeners over at Spotify, YouTube, Anchor, Google Podcasts, and Breaker. And if, in case you're wondering why our Facebook page is suddenly gone, don't worry. We're just focusing on Twitter right now. So please do follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/MCUExchange. But you can also like and head over to our website at www.mcuexchange.com for all the MCUExchange goodies and features for everything Marvel Cinematic Universe. And now let's move on to the rundown of the news. First up, fresh news coming up. Fresh confirmation for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness as Baron Mordo actor Chiwetel Ejiofor all but confirmed that he will reprise the role in 2022's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. That confirmation came from the actor himself. We've known that this has been rumored way back in February, but the confirmation comes from Ejiofor himself. He said, and I quote, "He's coming on. I'm very, very excited about that. Obviously, we've been sort of interrupted as the whole world has been in the pandemic, but hopefully we're back on track with that and continuing quite soon. So I'm very excited about it." And he also gave his tease when asked about where exactly Mordo was during Avengers Endgame's final battle. And he said, "All will be revealed." Charles, exciting news. What do you think is the role of Baron Mordo in the upcoming Doctor Strange sequel? Like, how huge is he's going to be compared to somewhat like a low-key role, like in Thor: Dark World, or do you think he has bigger role moving forward?
What I really like about the Doctor Strange movie is that I like how it'll be like 6 years um since the first movie when the sequel
Yeah.
comes out. So you've got like a 6 year gap. There's so much shit to explain with what exactly went on with Mordo. Last we saw him, he um he got the powers of what's his face at the end the post credit scene of the Doctor Strange movie, and he sort of begun his crusade
Uh,
against all those who misuse magic for their own sort of I guess for their own benefit. And it's going to be so interesting to see what he thinks of the world now, since since Thanos showed up, since an army of sorcerers marched up to fight against Thanos, and use magic to, I guess, save the world. I wonder what he thinks of that. So I am curious what his role is going to be. We know that Nightmare is sort of going to be, I guess, the de facto big bad,
mhm.
and with Nightmare there, and then with Mordo there, who exactly is gonna be, who's gonna take all of Strange's attention for the big picture. I'm so curious what's gonna happen. I could see him sort of being a low key role, sort of a antagonistic anti-hero where Strange has to work with this guy who hates him and who Strange hates, and it's gonna be a very interesting dynamic. But yeah, I'm all for Edgy for returning, and I can't wait to see what Mordo has been up to for the past 6 7 years.
Awesome. And now, Joe, what are your thoughts about his return? Also, can you theorize about if he was snapped by Thanos or he's not snapped by Thanos? Because it's going to have a larger implication
Mm.
of his role moving forward.
I'm excited. I think he's first of all just a fantastic actor, and it's a great role that I think was slightly underutilized to some degree in the first because it was mostly about their friendship and then the betrayal, and they kind of rushed into him becoming evil or an anti-hero. But it's very exciting to see him back because the question is like this no more wizard thing. We haven't seen any outside of Wong and Doctor Strange, so
Yeah.
who knows if with the snap he kind of his list got shortened. I kind of think he was still around
Bridge the
because
gap.
it makes for an interesting because it makes for an interesting story because if he was out on a hunt and a lot of wizards disappeared, uh, what does that imply for the wizards that showed up during the final battle with Thanos? Because we saw a lot of them there. Like we didn't see any until that moment where suddenly this army of magicians and wizards, or however we want to call them, showed up to aid in battle. And that's kind of an interesting thing because either he was, laying low or he's been picking them off one after another, or what's his selection pretty much. So I think it's really I would love to see him not be snapped, to kind of see what he went through when his mission pretty much got taken away from him.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I think that would make because I think they're trying to push him towards anti-hero rather than complete villain, and I think that's an interesting story to dive into. Maybe we'll even meet a different version of him in the multiverse. You know, that's an exciting thing, a casting closer to the comics where we see what direction he could have gone. So there's a lot of potential with that character, and I'm really excited what they're going to do.
Yeah. And then
Definitely.
Joe made a very interesting point about, what does he feel about the world, or rather Thanos taking, Mordo's mission from his hands. But I'm also curious, what if Mordo gets snapped, and what he thinks of, we don't know where exactly these souls all went. We can only guess that they went inside like some sort of soul stone. But if that is the case, could this experience of death, sort of, could it have changed
Mm.
Mordo's perception on
Hmm.
his mission? Maybe once he experiences that snap, he wakes up 6 years later. What the fuck happened? I am curious if that sort of changes his perception on his mission, and just annihilating all of sorcery around the world.
Yeah, and seeing that the last time we saw him, his last line was "No more sorcerers," and then during Endgame's final battle, look at all those sorcerers
Yeah,
revealing it. That's gonna be like, oh man, I still have a mission to complete.
Just imagine he has like this hit list, and then all of them show up. It's like, I keep forgetting they have schools.
Yeah. And how
I
do you?
let's say this: ultimate crossover. Mordo goes to Hogwarts.
destroy
I
everyone.
was gonna for everyone to see, like for it's really delight to see. And we still don't know. Not much is known about what the sorcerers comprise of. Maybe there are other factions around the world that that maybe we can discover around when Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness premieres next 2 years from now. Next up on the news list is another MCU movie from Phase 4, Shang-Chi and the Legend of Ten Rings. Yesterday, in a report from Murphy's Multiverse, insider Charles Murphy revealed that they have uncovered evidence that the film will be partially set during China's Song Dynasty and the Turco-Persian Seljuk Dynasty. Murphy pointed out that the evidence was connected to a previous casting call last year, which indicated that Marvel Studios was looking for a ruler of a distant Asian kingdom, while also speculating that the Mandarin, character played by Tony Leung, could be a descendant of Genghis Khan, which is closely tied to Marvel Comics. Charles, what can you say about this? Shang-Chi diving down to the comics lore, also further expanding the backstory of the Mandarin. They're trying to shy away from the Iron Man 3 Mandarin twist, right? Like they're trying to give a proper introduction to the character.
What I find very interesting about the Genghis Khan connection, I mean, it's sort of been there in the comics, but also when you rewatch the first Iron Man, one of the, I forgot what's his name. His name was Raza, the head of the Ten Rings we see in the first Iron Man. He does mention
Mhm.
Genghis Khan as one of the
Mm.
great rulers of the world, sort of sort of someone they look up to. So we know that there's a bit of admiration from their side over the Mandarin's history. So it only just enriches the MCU as we know it. I am curious what if we're gonna see some scenes spanning back thousands of years ago. I wonder what that looks like for the MCU. I mean, we're gonna see the Eternals. We're gonna see what the world was like maybe 2,000 years back before everything started. But with the Genghis Khan stuff, it was like only like 1,000 years ago when he started conquering the lands of Asia. So I am curious what it looks like. I wonder if there's gonna be like a mystical element to it. I wonder, me and Charles were talking about this yesterday. What if Genghis originally had the Ten Rings? Maybe he was the first one to have
Mhm.
it, and throughout his conquering over Asia, he amasses all these rings, and all of a sudden these rings disappear, and it's up to his descendant Mandarin to sort of reclaim the glory of Genghis Khan's power. So it's super interesting, and I can't wait to see what they have in store for the Mandarin history.
Do you think we will see how the Ten Rings will be passed over different generations, like the flashback? Is that the cause of
I
flashback?
hope so. I hope they sort of explore that. I mean, there's so much about the Ten Rings I am curious of. I am curious about its history. I'm also curious of what it
Mm.
can do, because in the comics it has all sorts of super duper crazy powers. I wonder if they're gonna incorporate that. Also, just logistically, I wonder if the Chinese government is gonna allow like a portrayal like that where it
Mm.
becomes just super duper
Mhm.
unrealistic and it's not exactly a faithful retelling of their history. There's so many aspects about this I am very excited for.
Joe, how about you? How are you excited? What are your expectations about the upcoming proper debut of the MCU's Mandarin?
I'm really excited, especially because I personally really hope we get the return of Trevor Slattery because that
Yeah.
just I just can imagine like that they're gonna be a little bit like the opening is with Trevor Slattery having to confront the real Mandarin, learning about the real history. And I like your idea, Charles, like the rings being passed on. I had a different theory for a while now that
Hmm.
because the Mandarin, like the version of Mandarin we saw in Iron Man 3 was obviously inspired by Eastern, Middle Eastern, with a flair of Genghis Khan in it. And it's kind of the go-to connection to say, oh, he's a descendant of Genghis Khan. Part of me always wondered, wouldn't it be more interesting if the Mandarin actually lived in the era of Genghis Khan? Because it was always like he goes old and rejuvenates himself, kind of like an inspired take from what like Ra's al Ghul does or
Hmm.
Ra's al Ghul. Like I kind of like the idea of the Mandarin being the right hand man of Genghis Khan that was always trying to wait for his turn to get the rings in his possession.
Mm.
And as a last act, because he knew he had a deceptive aid, he cast out the 10 rings by his men throughout the world. And over all these years, Mandarin's trying to get these ring togethers, and the last ring he needs to get is in this tournament arc they're teasing. That would be the final one where he spent all his time training his son to get to this position that he can get the final ring in his hand as a last curse out to Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
Because I think
Very
that would be a
interesting.
great history to explore.
Next up on the list, let's go over to the Disney Plus side of things. It's from the Hawkeye Disney Plus series. In a previous
Hmm.
episode of the Murphy's Law podcast, which is also part of Charles Villanova, it was suggested that Kevin Feige and company were planning on Hawkeye going deaf in his upcoming Disney series. And I quote, this is what Charles said. What was heard was that they were initially going to pursue the idea of Clint going deaf. That was part of the plan for the Hawkeye series, and so we'll see if that's still in there. Charles, Hawkeye being deaf is like for casual fans, they don't know that happened in the comics. So,
Yeah.
how significant is this new development for the character for the MCU?
I'm not fully familiar with that aspect of Hawkeye in the comics. I always known that it's been sort of a part of him, but then again, it's never been a major part of any of the stories I've read. It's just sort of like like Daredevil's blind. It's just like he's blind. It's not
Yeah.
at this point. It barely has anything to do with the actual stories. It's just a handicap he has to improve other aspects of his life. It's just he's deaf in his ears, so he has to compensate by being a better archer and whatnot. So I'm not quite sure how it's gonna factor in. I wonder if the main thing, I guess his main struggle in this show will be him dealing with his deafness, and maybe that's when we last week we talked about Echo coming in. Echo's a deaf character. We talked about
Hmm.
the possibility of Echo
Mm.
sort of helping Clint, overcome this disability. I wonder if it's gonna factor in like that. But overall, I can't chime in much to how important Clint's deafness is in the comics. It's just as far as I know, it's just something that he has. Like for example, Clint in the comics is left-handed, and it's just a super super specific Easter egg that I think the MC was doing well, because if you watch some of Hawkeye's scenes closely in the films, he is left-handed
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
MCU. But I wonder if that's more of Jeremy Renner just being left-handed, or I wonder if that's the deliberate thing that they're doing just to keep the character faithful. But it is what it is.
Joe, Hawkeye has evolved throughout the Infinity Saga. Mind controlled by Loki, the
Mm.
reveal of his family to the audience, being Ronin, uh, having been retired for some time, coming back, retired, coming back, and now possibly going deaf. What do you think is how do you describe the MCU journey of Hawkeye, and if the Hawkeye series is indeed the end, is this a satisfying ending for the character?
It's a good question. I kind of say that Hawkeye is like kind of a MCU version of the Lethal Weapon movies, where just I'm 2 days to retirement, and it keeps pulling me back. That's kind of what Hawkeye is.
Oh yeah,
And and he always wants to get out, but he somehow always ends up back. And you see it because he not only is he a family man, but he does care a lot about the Avengers, and that I think that's one of the most important points of his character. And the thing is what, like him going deaf, I truly believe that this will be the final consequence from the Avengers Mansion that just pushes him to the okay, I truly can't do this forever. Also, God, if they start that stupid Disney Plus series with him talking to his family finally and then slowly stop hearing their voices, I'm gonna freak out because the man just had enough with losing a family. Um,
yeah,
it's it's an interesting, exciting thing because it gives him a different character and a different motivation that lends itself to really say, okay, he needs a protege, he needs to pass this on. And I kind of hope that he still sticks around as like a teacher because he is kind of that role of the person who grounds the Earth's mightiest heroes that should be higher up in their strength and everything. And then you have this one guy with a bow going, "Go to your room, stop it." I think he would be a great young Avengers trainer alongside Ant-Man, and that's something I really hope because we lost three major characters. Yes, Black Widow is returning with her own film, but her future is still uncertain beyond that if they don't turn Black Widow into its own like prequel trilogy. But it would be sad to lose these last three of the original. With Thor doing his own thing, you pretty much only have Hulk and Hawkeye left, and from the original six. So they make like the perfect choice to at least continue the legacy to some extent.
And now moving on to another news. This comes under the rumor umbrella. A new rumor from MCU Cosmic has stated that Marvel Studios is planning to introduce a character named Lucia Von Bardas to the MCU. In the comics, she acts as a successor to the throne of Latveria after taking over from Victor Von Doom, even using a Doctor Doom name for a period of time. So, Doctor Doom is like pretty much confirmed at this point that he's going to show up sometime in the future, right? Because he's a big villain, iconic villain in Marvel Comics. So Lucia Von Bardas, Joe, what do you think is how do you see Doctor Doom's debut in the MCU? Should he debut uh, in an Avengers film, or should he debut in a Fantastic Four film, or should he be teased in a post-credit scene or in a solo movie in the future? Tough question.
Damn, that's
Sorry.
a good question. Yeah. No, I think that's a really interesting question. I always envisioned the thing is Doom has the potential to be a Fantastic Four villain and an Avengers villain. And what I would like to see, like Thanos was built up as an Avengers villain, and he was set up for that. I would kind of love to see, kind of similar to what Loki did in the original Phase 1, was that he was actually just a minor. He was just he was the villain in the film, but he grew to become a bigger threat.
Yeah,
and I think it's an exciting prospect to have Doctor Doom. I think Fantastic Four should do their own thing and tease him, and not go into him until a sequel because it's kind of run of the mill to once again do a Fantastic Four story with Doctor Doom, or at least even not make him a villain at first. I'm still hoping that we get like a Fantastic Four film set in the 60s that just sounds like a fun concept because it gives Doom time to build his entire country and empire that just makes an interesting storyline on its own. But I think he should be a post-credit sequence reveal or tease because he is a recognizable villain for the public, and then go all in with a sequel, and then become that huge threat that no one thought he would be. Because it's kind of like Thanos, they knew from the get-go, as soon as they heard his name, as soon as they heard anything, he was the ultimate villain. And especially if we're going towards young Avengers, these are going to be arrogant kids, teenagers that have powers and abilities that may think they are stronger than they are. And then have someone where they think, oh, he's just a random dictator, wipe the floor with them is a great character moment we could have for this young Avengers team, and also just showcase what kind of threat he really is. And that, Fantastic Four, he kind of just, he's having trouble with them, or maybe he never actually loses, and it's all part of a bigger plan that is built throughout the phases, a bit more interconnected than just, oh, here's a MacGuffin.
And his debut should be so menacing and threatening to the future Avengers team. Charles, how about you? What do you think about how Doom will debut in the MCU?
Well, like Joe, it's very interesting to think about Doom as a potential villain, because again he has fought so many all kinds of big time heroes throughout the years that he could pretty much be anyone's villain at this point. Um, he's fought Daredevil, he's teamed up with Doctor Strange, he's fought Black Panther, he's fought Iron Man, he's fought the Fantastic Four. Obviously, he's fought pretty much everyone. So Joe makes a good point in that you could sort of introduce him as you know this just Fantastic Four villain, but then branch him off to bigger fishes. Just let him fight everyone at this point. The whole Lucia von Barda story is very very interesting because she is the villain of one of my favorite comic books, which is Secret War. It's basically a story where Nick Fury sends a top secret team into Latveria to dismantle the country's if I'm not mistaken, Latveria was up to very very shady shit, and Nick Fury heard about this deal they were gonna do with the UN about providing weapons to all the supervillains. So Nick Fury wanted like a preemptive strike against Latveria. So he forms a top secret Black Ops team with um, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Daredevil, Captain America. This story was also incidentally the debut of Quake in comics. So if they decide to introduce this character specifically with this story, then it's gonna be super duper interesting to see where it leads, because you got the Latvia connection, you got the possibility of seeing this sort of this prototypical secret warriors sort of set up with Nick Fury and a team of Black Ops superheroes. So yeah, it's super interesting. I love the possibility of seeing just this character Lucia, and the possibility of connecting it to Latveria and Doctor Doom.
I just realized that a fun part about Doom could also be is that the longer the franchise goes on, he gets stronger because he takes something from the villains they defeat. And that's kind of a fun prospect, because you have a villain who at first, like in the first film, they defeated him, he was tough, but you just see him like use technology, he became, I think he got magic at one point in the comics as well. So you could have a connection that he starts becoming more and more integral with every aspect of these franchises. And everyone's not even like realizing that the villain they once defeated is actually still getting stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a very interesting point here, guys. Last December, just checking our site, we reported that, we reported a rumor way back that WandaVision may debut Latveria in the MCU. So I think they're going towards like what they did with Black Panther and Wakanda, like giving hints to audiences. Okay, there's Wakanda there, there's vibranium there. So they're trying to set it up, trying to hype up the debut of Doctor Doom. And that's about wrap it up for our rundown. And let's now move on to the next segment, which is the Shield Season Pass. Latest episode of Agents of Shield. Episode 5 is entitled Trout in the Milk. Wow, this is an exciting episode with huge implications, not just to the show, but also to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. For those of you who are not watching, please do watch it now. You still have time to catch up, because it's taking a direct effect on the Marvel Cinematic Universe in spirit. So, okay, let's break it down. They're in the 70s, Joe, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're in the 70s, so let's...
2 timelines of the 70s.
Yeah, two years, like 1973, 1976. And the Chronicoms are playing dirty in a way that they're cheating already in this time war. Let's break down the MC references first. Okay, there's a mention of
Mhm.
Bruce Banner, a 7-year-old Bruce Banner, who's being targeted by Hydra. Weird. And also there's Nick Fury,
Yeah.
Victoria Hand as well, and of
Mhm.
course that similar concept to Captain America: The Winter Soldier, aka Project Insight. Are you surprised by that reveal? Like, Project Insight happening 4 years earlier. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it was a great reveal because at first, we know we don't know all of MCU history, but that's like a major mile point in the history. And we thought, okay, they're going to intervene and maybe they're going to change a few things, but of all things, to push Project Insight almost 40 years ahead of schedule is a huge deal because
Yeah.
no one can stop them, or at least our Agents of Shield team can, but there's no Captain America to take it down. There's no technology to hack your way in and disable it like you do nowadays, or almost anything. They're using old tech, but they still have literal lasers on the satellites to kill random people. And everyone at Shield at that time is like, "Yeah, dude, we're doing a good thing
Yeah, they're
again."
celebrating, dude.
Hmm. Also,
And
great way to bring back a character they teased 2 seasons ago.
Rick Stoner's back. Yeah. I just want to point this out that, back in season 1, Captain America: The Winter Soldier destroyed the premise of Agents of Shield. And now,
Mm,
Agents of Shield is destroying the premise of Captain America: The Winter Soldier by
full
doing its
circle,
plot.
baby.
Yeah, full circle, doing its plot 40 years earlier. So it's crazy. It's crazy. Um, I know we're doing a lot of theories of larger implications here, of course, that there will be larger implications. I think they're trying to dive into the multiverse now. I think.
Yeah.
Because this is a direct effect of the timeline. They have Project Insight, it's there. Wilfred Malik is alive. That's supposed to be dead now. But he was dead
What?
at the end of the episode, so they killed him.
Yeah.
And what do you think of the larger implications of this timeline shenanigan in the 2014 film Captain America: The Winter Soldier? Because if this happened 40 decades earlier without Captain America stopping them, it's going to be a direct effect on the other events, right?
Oh, definitely. And the thing is that, well, we don't know how exactly, to some degree, some people still say, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is not MCU canon.
Yeah.
It takes a lot from the films. It's like a parallel universe. So the question is if the history, like, because I think Daniel Sousa makes a great reference here, is like, were you always meant to save me? Was I always meant to die there?
Hmm.
Is this the timeline? And then you have the Chronicoms changing the time, even though a few episodes ago they're like, the only thing we want to change is that Shield doesn't exist. So the person they're trying to kill is now a person they're working together with.
Yeah.
It's all confusing as hell. But I think and the next thing is I think what's really telling is that when Malik says, "Oh, the Chronicoms, they know exactly what's happening because they have that Oracle character that pretty much is telling them the future
Hmm.
or how events have unfolded." To me, it feels like they're slowly. I don't know. They're probably gonna have to fix it. Either gonna fix everything by the end, or they're gonna just say this is a parallel universe and this is why the Netflix series, the Agents of Shield series, are not part of the film series. Like, this is Kevin Feige took over last episode. Okay, this is a sentence you have to add now. You're going that direction anyway. Do it.
Yeah. If we're speaking about Enoch, let's just talk this amazing scene. Come with me if you want to continue to exist. Oh my god, I love that.
Enoch's my favorite character, and I love how like emotionless petty he is about being trapped on in that bar for 40 years.
Yeah, but he's showing emotions now. Like when he was there during the episode, like you left me for 40 years.
He was actually mad.
I think
I
it's
love how he does still care for them. He's just kind of like, that wasn't very nice.
yeah. Him being emotionless is what makes him interesting for some reason.
Mhm. But yeah, at the same time, when he was driving that car, you saw him having fun. He was just
Yeah,
like, "What?"
Press the gas. Hit it. And yeah, and also um the I root for his characters, ever since the first season, and it's hard for them to see
Mm,
lose and somewhat loose in this previous episode. The thing is, Hydra knows, like Hydra potentially knows everything that's about to happen, right? Technically, because the Shield,
mhm.
I mean the Chronicoms have told them what is happening in the future, how the Avengers, dismantled them. And
Yeah,
very interesting fact here is that we've seen the 1970s timeline in the MCU movies twice. In the flashback from
true. Yeah,
Ant-Man, an older Peggy Carter, older Hank Pym, older Howard Stark, and also just recently in last year's Avengers Endgame, where they go back to 1970, not 1973,
mhm.
1976. I wonder if that would change as well, because Wilfred Malik during that time was dead, and now he's alive, and I don't know what else changes. I think we're gonna find out in the
Mm.
next few episodes. And now, there's a tease in the end, Joe, in the cliffhanger ending. I hate it when they do cliffhangers. I just want more.
Yeah.
Daniel Whitehall will return for sure, and also it might tease the appearance of Daisy's mother, Jian Ying. What do you think about that? Coming full circle.
Uh, I, I'm a big fan of Whitehall as a character. I think he's played extremely well, and it was such a great storyline in season two.
Yeah,
So I'm really excited. I don't know, like he called him the gray haired guy, but the problem is he also had gray hair when he looked young. So I don't
yeah.
know if we're gonna see a young version post Jiaying operation or pre. Interesting. This entire storyline with this Malik's son wanting Quake's powers. That's an interesting twist I did not see coming
Mm-hmm.
because it gives us a B plot for the next episode.
Yep.
And I'm curious, especially like they also are teasing like Daniel Sousa wants to get off the ship at a specific timeline,
Mm-hmm.
which I hope doesn't happen because he's giving a great performance where he gets into Simmons' face in a fight with Deke. That was a really well done scene and well performed by both actors. So
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to where this plot goes. I hope we get a return from Jie Ying. I love this history lesson we're getting on Shield and how it's changing, and we're getting a lot of cameos from characters of season past. So I'm really curious as soon as we get into the modern era, how many familiar faces we're going to see moving forward.
I'm seeing a trend here, Joe. If
Yeah.
now they're the first 5 episodes mainly Hydra, and now the next few episodes they're trying to dive into the Inhuman aspect now. You seen that trend?
Yeah.
Like they're trying to
Yeah.
trying to compact all the previous storylines in past seasons, and now trying to like give a love letter to the fans, sort of like giving this full references to the previous villains, to the previous arcs in the previous seasons. It's gonna be one hell of a finale. And there's so much talk
Oh
about the
yeah.
finale, right? About Ming Na Wen saying that the fans will love it. Chloe Bennett even mentioning that no, this is not like Game of Thrones. Fans will love this. Like they have high praise for the finale, and I think that those high praise are leaning towards a proper MCU reference.
I hope so. I don't think that the show needs it necessarily,
Hmm.
because it is really good at doing its own thing. Oh my god! You know what I just realized?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if one episode takes place in New York with Daniel Sousa undercover as a cop
Oh my
to
god.
explain why the same actor was in that film?
Yeah, it's been a running theory around the social media sites. That's going to be very interesting to see. Like they don't need to show Avengers. They just need to show
Yeah,
the destruction, even the aftermath. Like, we can see that.
yeah, it's exciting.
And there's this one.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. There's this one intriguing plot point in that previous episode I wanted to talk about. We can theorize about what it is. Remember when Deke shot Wilfred Malik, and then Malik was holding an envelope or a photo or something, and then Yo-Yo was shocked seeing it. I think that the photo is a photo of Fitz during that timeline, or I don't know, maybe because they're trying to talk about they're trying to revolve around Deke, shooting him, and then the Chronicom's like saying, I know that he like no, not Chronicom. The Wilfred Malik is saying, I know that you will come, mentioning Deke. Maybe it has connection to that. Do you think that the photo includes Fitz in some way? A Fitz tease?
That's a good question, because I thought it was connected to the reveal that Mac's parents are in the base, so they can't blow it up.
Yeah.
Because he said something about leverage. It being Fitz, though, I think is a much more interesting plot line, because it's it's because it's his parents, and then it just out of nowhere, Fitz is in this timeline, or Fitz is on their ship. And I think that will definitely tie into what's going on with Simmons. That will definitely be connected.
And in the previous seasons, whenever a character is not around, is absent from the first few episodes, there is this one episode that's focused on that one character. When Simmons was gone, and a whole episode is focused on her in that planet in Malvet. And then when Fitz was gone, a whole episode is now focused on him trying to get back to the timeline. I think that we are in for a Fitz-centered episode in the next few episodes.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Him probably catching up throughout all the timelines.
And, what I like about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is that they love to connect in any way.
Mm-hmm.
What if they show the previous episodes in Fitz's perspective? That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Seeing him in the background.
I'm very curious.
Seeing in the background? Okay, that's what they're doing. Okay, I'm going to help these guys out. Maybe he's the one pulling the strings in a good way. Just so that they can't show his location. Very exciting. I haven't watched the preview yet for the next episode, but it's going to be a very exciting episode indeed next week. And I do hope that your theory is correct, that Fitz will show up at the latter part of episode 6.
Here's hoping.
You love the 70s S.H.I.E.L.D. uniforms, Joe?
Oh my god. That is such a great reference. Because I always remember seeing the really well done concept art for the original Avengers, where they're going to have that design from the comics. I still think it looks like that blue and white is an interesting combination. And to see it here in the 70s, and then Coulson I forgot about these. Very practical. That was such a great reference.
Very good.
I mean, just thinking about it, it took 7 seasons to get a reference to the original S.H.I.E.L.D. costume, which has been one of the most major mainstays in the comics for years.
Yeah.
That's just amazing to me. And I always wanted to see it. I even was hoping they would actually reveal. I originally thought they were going to reveal it in season 5 when they went to the lighthouse, is because they said, it's from the 70s. I thought back then they would reveal it. And it was like 2 seasons later, I was actually still correct. It just was the wrong season.
Yeah. And that's about to wrap it up, guys, for this episode of the MCUExchange podcast. And you can follow me on Twitter for all the comments, all the questions about this episode, for all the latest news. You can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/AaronChino. You can also follow Joe on Twitter.
At Tatabel, THATABERL.
And you can also follow our buddy Charles from Twitter.
Find me on Twitter at CFS
All right. Episode 25 is in the books. Keep safe, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Until next time.